The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. When Jesus had finished all his words to the people, he entered Capernaum. A centurion there had a slave who was ill and about to die, and he was valuable to him. When he heard about Jesus, he sent elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and save the life of his slave. They approached Jesus and strongly urged him to come, saying, "He deserves to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he built the synagogue for us." And Jesus went with them. But when he was only a short distance from the house, the centurion sent friends to tell him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you enter under my roof. Therefore I did not consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a person subject to authority, with soldiers subject to me. And I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come here,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning, said to the crowd following him, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." When the messengers returned to the house, they found the slave in good health. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah, great. It's a great recollection, this mighty deed that Jesus does for the centurion, for the slave of the centurion. And what we've seen immediately previous to this in Luke's Gospel is the Sermon on the Plain, where Jesus is, rewriting what it means to be, an Israelite, a Jew, in the sense of he's giving authoritative interpretation of, not only the sacred text that the people hold in common, but also their national life and all the rest, right? This is, in fact, the vocation of Israel. This is Jesus' claim, right? This is the vocation of Israel. And I prefer perhaps my own Cliff's notes on it would look perhaps to the Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew and say, Israel exists to be a light to the nations. Of course, I like that because it's the parish's motto, right? So it's a bit easier for us. But the light to the nations, and what does it mean, right? What has Jesus done there, except to say that it's not as simple as they would perhaps believe, that Israel is called to be a great nation, beloved by God, favored by God, and the rest. And so they ought to expect their own growth in power and prestige, riches, and the rest. No, it's that they are a nation chosen by God in order to be about His purposes. Right? They have nothing to commend themselves as a nation. They don't have power. They're given their land by God. They didn't achieve this great military conquest outside of the power and providence of God. It was given to them by Him, and so there's a nation that's chosen. Simply, they are chosen, and they're chosen to bring His blessing to bear in the world. So, and when Jesus is giving this then authoritative interpretation of the call of Israel, He's doing it now. He's reforming or giving new life to that movement around Himself. So He is the Messiah at the head of His people. So He's leading Israel into this new life. Or He's leading His new Israel movement to live as Israel was always intended to live. Jesus is making it so that Israel can be Israel at last. But it only happens in Him, and then the movement that, I don't say grows up around Him, because it's too, I don't know, it sounds less than personal. It's the movement that He assembles. It's the group that He assembles around Himself and leads, right? He's at the head of His body. He's at the head of the movement. And the movement, right, it is composed of the people who are called by Him and equipped by Him to go that way with Him. So that's all going on. And then what do we see? The very next scene, right? Jesus, he's given his sermon. The very next scene is the centurion and the healing of the centurion's slave. Centurion is not a Jew. He's already going outside the family of faith. And of course, I don't know if I have to make the point also, but the centurion is not a disciple of his. It's kind of strange, right, to say that. The centurion is not a disciple of Jesus's. And this is perhaps, all the more reason for Jesus's somewhat surprised response, right? I haven't found faith like this in Israel. You say, well, how is that? How is that the case? He hasn't found faith like this in Israel, right? But here, right, it's clear the centurion, you can do what you want. He said, I understand the way that authority works. I tell someone to do it, he does it. I tell him to come here, he comes here. You can do it. That's what faith is. That's what our faith is supposed to be. Jesus can do it. And he has the authority to do it. He says it, it happens. Are we even, this is 2,000 years on. This is kind of embarrassing. Did we learn our lesson in 2,000 years? It's like, it takes a long time to learn our lessons. But 2,000 years is a long time, Is our faith as bold as this? Is our faith as bold as a non-disciple, non-Jew, middle-level army sergeant or whatever of the opposing side? Is our faith as strong as his? 2,000 years on? I'm not sure that it is. But it can be. It can be, because it's Jesus. It's just Jesus. So is our whole life, is our whole heart given to Jesus? Right? Are we giving ourselves, are we entrusting ourselves totally to him? And then following where he leads. Now, the other layer, there are many layers of this. One other layer of this is that we have been summoned by Jesus to be part of his New Israel movement, which means that we're meant to bring blessing to others. Now, we do so at the direction of Jesus. So he has called each and every one of us to be in his New Israel movement. He's called each and every one of us to bring God's blessing to bear in the world. Wherever we are, I should say, wherever he sends us. Likely that's where you are, where you were already planning to be today, but it might be somewhere else if you entrust yourself to him. But you go where he sends you, and you bring God's blessing to life where you are. You pray where you are, and you love where you are. And can I say, you have to pray in order to love. You have to worship God. He has to be the center of your heart and life, or you will not exercise to the fullest extent. You will not exercise wise and prudent and merciful and the rest stewardship. You won't do it. You just don't have the right focus. You'll be kind of pulling in different directions. Okay, but Jesus has called us to this movement, the New Israel movement, where blessing is to come to the world through us. And, my friends, he's equipping us to do it. And he has overcome every obstacle that could prevent us from doing it. It's kind of difficult, right, the Christian life. It's a life of no excuses. It is. At the end of the day, there are no excuses. That's very tough because we like excuses. Right? But Jesus has called you. Does he know what he's doing? Yeah, he does know what he's doing. He called you. I was going to say, he didn't call the person next to you, but he did in this case. He did call the person. He did also call the person next to you, I hope. He called you. He called you. He didn't make a mistake there. No matter how you feel about it, he didn't make a mistake. He called you. And he is sending you, and he's equipping you. And it's more than that. It's too mechanistic. He He called you, he loves you, and he's pouring into your heart his own love so that you can bring that love wherever you go. The love of God. Because it's, at the end of the day, it's the love of God that's going to raise up his fallen world. It's not going to be my kind of weak sauce love, right? It's going to be, my heart open to his love and then bringing his love to life where I am. So he's called you, my friends. He's called you. He's sending you. He's equipping you. He's inspiring you. He's animating you so you can do it.